Terminus Station smells like recycled air, desperation, and the particular brand of lawlessness that thrives where governmental oversight becomes more suggestion than enforcement. Captain Marcus Reed docks the Dustrunner at berth 47, a slot that costs twice what it should because everything on Frontier stations does, and tries to remember why he thought frontier trading was a good career move. Right. Freedom. No corporate oversight. The ability to choose his own routes and cargoes. The reality, of course, is that freedom means living hand-to-mouth, taking whatever contracts pay enough to cover fuel and docking fees, and occasionally wondering if selling the ship and becoming a station janitor would be less stressful. He's here for routine resupply, nothing exciting, just protein rations and resic filters, and to pick up a cargo container bound for a mining colony 3 jumps out. Simple job, in and out, no complications. Marcus should know better than to expect simple. The station's lower market is exactly where it sounds, literally below the main commercial sectors, in the spaces where legitimate businesses don't bother opening and security cameras mysteriously malfunction. He's cutting through it as a shortcut to the supply depot when he hears the auctioneer. Lot 47, healthy female species Villani, fully trained in domestic service, starting bid 500 credits. Marcus stops walking, tells himself to keep moving. He's seen slave auctions before on frontier stations. They're technically illegal under Earth law, but openly practiced where enforcement is absent. He's learned that one person can't fix systemic injustice. Learned that interfering usually makes things worse. Learned to keep his head down and his conscience selectively activated. He should keep walking. He turns toward the auction instead, drawn by morbid curiosity or stupidity, possibly both. The auction block is exactly as grim as expected. A raised platform surrounded by the kind of people whose hobbies probably include atrocity and worse atrocity. On the platform stands an alien woman, shackled at wrists and ankles, wearing clothing that was probably fine once but is now just rags. She's not human. Her ears rise in elegant points that mark her as something other. Her skin has faint patterns that might be bioluminescent in different lighting. Her features are simultaneously familiar and foreign. But it's her posture that stops Marcus cold. Despite the chains, despite the circumstances designed to strip dignity, she stands straight, shoulders back, head high, like she's refusing to grant her captors the satisfaction of seeing her broken. Her eyes scan the crowd, not pleading, not desperate, just calculating, looking for the least terrible option in a situation with no good ones. 600. Someone shouts, a Corvan trader, his translator crackling. 650. Another voice, human this time. Marcus feels sick. The woman's eyes pass over him briefly, and in that half-second of eye contact, he sees intelligence, fear carefully controlled, and something that might be resignation. She's already accepted that this is happening, already calculating which buyer will be least likely to kill her. The bids continue. 700, 750, 800. Marcus watches the numbers climb and does rough math. That's more than some people on frontier stations make in a month. Apparently she's valuable, which probably makes her situation worse. 900. The latest bidder is human, dressed in clothing that suggests wealth and moral flexibility. Marcus doesn't need to see his face to know exactly what kind of person spends 900 credits on a sentient being. The woman's eyes find that bidder, and for the first time Marcus sees her control slip, sees fear break through. Before his brain fully processes what his mouth is doing, Marcus raises his hand. 1,000. The crowd turns to look at him. The auctioneer grins. We have 1,000. Any advance on 1,000. Marcus realizes what he's done. Committed 1,000 credits he absolutely cannot afford to spend on a principle he definitely believes in but really should have kept theoretical. The wealthy human glares at him. 1,100. 1,200, Marcus hears himself say, because apparently his mouth has declared independence from his brain and is making financial decisions now. 1,300. 1500. Marcus is going to regret this, is already regretting this. But the woman on the platform is looking at him now, really looking, trying to determine if he's better or worse than her other options. He tries to project, "I'm actually trying to help. Please don't judge me for participating in this horror show," through facial expressions alone. It probably doesn't work. The wealthy human spits something that Marcus's translator politely declines to render, walks away. Apparently 1500 credits exceeds the value of whatever terrible plans he had. Sold. The auctioneer points at Marcus with the enthusiasm of someone who just made an excellent commission. Lot 47, sold for 1500 credits to the gentleman in section C. Please proceed to processing. Marcus approaches the processing desk feeling like he's moving through a nightmare where his conscience is making expensive decisions against his will. The attendant is bored, professional, completely unconcerned that she's processing paperwork for human trafficking. Name, Marcus Reed. Species, human, obviously. Ship registry. He provides it, watches her enter information into a system that shouldn't exist. Payment method. Marcus transfers 1500 credits, his entire cargo budget plus emergency reserves, and tries not to calculate how badly this has destroyed his financial planning. Sign here, and here, initial here. The attendant pushes forward documents that make Marcus want to set something on fire. Congratulations, you now legally own Lot 47 per Terminus Station Autonomous Governance. Ownership transfers fully, no refunds, disputes handled through station arbitration. This is barbaric, Marcus mutters. This is frontier commerce. You want moral high ground, go back to Earth space. She hands him a data chip. Ownership documents, medical records, training history. Have a nice day. Marcus takes the chip because what else is he going to do? Approaches the platform where the woman is being transferred to his custody, already planning his next move. He'll take her to the nearest embassy. File paperwork. Ensure she's freed legally so she can't be recaptured. It'll be complicated but manageable. He's helped people before in less official capacities. This is just more official. And expensive. And legally binding in ways that make his skin crawl. The woman watches him approach with those intelligent eyes, still calculating, still assessing. Up close, he can see details the distance had hidden. Faint scars on her wrists where shackles have worn against skin, exhaustion barely masked by determination, the way she's trembling slightly despite her controlled posture. "I'm Marcus," he says, because starting with names seems better than starting with, "I technically own you now and hate everything about this situation." "I know, I heard." Her voice is clear, unaccented standard. "Are you going to tell me what you want, or do I have to guess? I want to get you somewhere safe and figure out how to free you properly. That's it. That's the plan." She studies his face like she's reading his biography written in his expression. "You're either genuine or an excellent liar." "I'm genuine and a terrible liar. Ask anyone." "I don't know anyone here to ask." She holds out her wrists. "These need to come off. I assume you have the key." Marcus locates the release mechanism, deactivates the shackles with hands that want to shake, but he forces steady. The chains fall away, leaving marks on her skin that make him want to hunt down whoever put them there. "Thank you," she says quietly. "Now take me somewhere private before we discuss what happens next. We're being watched, and not all of it is friendly." Marcus follows her gaze, catches sight of 3 different parties paying too much attention to them. Right, of course. Nothing about this situation was going to be simple. "My ship, berth 47, can you walk?" "Yes." She moves stiffly, muscles protesting from however long she's been confined. "Lead the way, Captain Reed. Let's discuss my immediate future somewhere I can lock the door." They navigate through the market, Marcus trying to look casual while every instinct screams that they're being followed. The Dustrunner has never looked more welcoming than when it appears at the end of the docking corridor, familiar and safe, and under his control. The ship's security system recognizes him, unseals the airlock, admits them both before resealing with protocols that make unauthorized entry very difficult. The ship's AI announces, "Welcome back, Captain Reed. Passenger identified as unregistered. Quarantine protocols active. Override quarantine. Register passenger as temporary crew." Marcus looks at the woman. "I'm sorry I didn't get your name." "Lysa Vellani." She's already moving through the ship with the awareness of someone familiar with starship layouts. "Where can we talk privately?" "Passenger cabin, this way." He shows her to the single guest quarters the Dustrunner possesses, small but clean, with its own hygiene facilities and a door that locks from the inside. "You're safe here." The ship's AI doesn't respond to anyone but me, and the locks are military grade, Lysa finishes, examining the door mechanism. "This is a civilian vessel with significantly upgraded security. Interesting. I like privacy." "I can see that." She sits on the cabin's single chair, and her posture finally relaxes slightly. "Now we can discuss what happens next without audience." "I'm going to contact the nearest embassy," Marcus begins. "File paperwork to have your ownership status dissolved. It'll take time, but..." "No." Lysa's voice is flat, "Sir. Absolutely not." "I'm sorry. You bought me, Captain Reed. Now finish it." Marcus stares at her, trying to parse what she's asking. "Finish what?" "I bought you to free you." "I'm not. This whole system is abhorrent, and I'm going to hand me over to authorities." Lysa stands, moves to the viewport showing station traffic. "I appreciate the noble sentiment. Let me explain why it'll get me killed." She turns to face him. "I was nobility once. Third daughter of House Vellani, diplomatic envoy to 17 systems. Then there was a coup on my homeworld. Revolutionary government, claims of liberation from aristocratic oppression, the usual rhetoric." Her voice is controlled, but Marcus hears pain underneath. "My family was executed. I was captured, declared property of the state, and sold to the highest bidder. The credits went to funding the revolution. Very efficient. That's..." Marcus can't find words adequate to the horror. "That's barbaric. That's politics in frontier space where Earth's government has no jurisdiction." She crosses her arms. "If you hand me to local authorities, to any authorities this far out, they will verify my identity. They will discover I'm wanted by Velener's new government. They will extradite me, and I will be publicly executed as a symbol of the old regime's defeat." Marcus sits heavily on the cabin's bench. "So contacting authorities gets me killed, yes." Lysa is matter-of-fact about it. "You purchased me legally. Under Terminus Station autonomous governance, I'm your property. And property cannot be extradited. Only owners can choose to release property to other jurisdictions. As long as I remain legally owned by someone, I cannot be legally returned to Velener." The full implication hits him. "You want me to keep you enslaved, as protection. I want you to honor the contract you signed when you bought me, which, according to these documents," she gestures at the data chip he's still holding, "is valid for 1 standard year unless voluntarily dissolved by the owner. Keep me as crew, as property, whatever legal fiction works in whatever jurisdiction we're in. Protect me until I can reclaim my freedom without it immediately becoming a death sentence." Marcus's entire rescue plan crumbles. "This is insane. I can't just keep you. That's not how this works. That's not who I am." "I know it's not who you are." Lysa moves closer. "I watched you at that auction, saw your face when you decided to bid. You weren't looking at merchandise. You were looking at a person in a horrible situation and deciding you couldn't walk past it. That's why I'm trusting you now with the worst possible request. Keep me enslaved for my own protection. There has to be another way." "There isn't. I've been enslaved for 4 months. I've had time to research options, legal frameworks, survival strategies. This is the only one that keeps me alive." Her voice softens slightly. "I saw you watching the auction, Captain Reed. Saw you decide to act even though it cost you significantly. You're not the kind of person who enjoys power over others, which makes you the safest option I'm likely to find." Marcus looks at her, this woman who was nobility and is now asking him to technically enslave her for protection. Every principle he holds is screaming that this is wrong. Every practical instinct is acknowledging she's right. 1 year, he says finally. I keep the legal paperwork. You work as crew, actual crew, not whatever horrible things you were probably expecting. You get quarters, privacy, respect, and the moment we find a way to free you safely, we do it immediately. No arguments. Something that might be relief crosses Lysa's face. Agreed. And I'm going to keep looking for alternatives. Legal protections, asylum options, anything that doesn't require me to technically own another sentient being. I would expect nothing less from someone who just spent 1,500 credits he clearly couldn't afford on a principal. Lysa extends her hand. 1 year of protection in exchange for keeping your conscience marginally intact. Deal. Marcus shakes her hand, seals the agreement, and tries to ignore the feeling that his life just became exponentially more complicated. Deal. What do I call you? Ma'am? Lysa. Former nobility has protocols and I'm going to mess them all up. Lysa is fine. I'm trying to not be nobility anymore. It didn't work out well for me. She almost smiles. What do I call you? Marcus. Just Marcus. Captain if we're in official situations, but otherwise just use my name. Marcus then. She sits back down, exhaustion finally showing. Thank you for buying me and being horrified about it. Your discomfort is significantly more reassuring than you probably realize. Great. My moral crisis is comforting. That's a new low for me. Marcus heads toward the door. Get some rest. We're leaving station as soon as I can file departure clearance, which I'm going to do now before anyone questions our arrangement. Marcus. He turns back. Yes. In case it matters, you made the right choice. Both at the auction and just now. Thank you for being the kind of human who makes that choice even when it costs you. Marcus doesn't trust himself to respond to that without his voice breaking. Just nods and leaves, sealing the door behind him with the sound of locks engaging. That means she can finally, actually be safe. He makes it to the cockpit before allowing himself to process everything that just happened. He bought a person, spent his entire operating budget on a principal, and now he's technically a slaver, even if his entire goal is to not be one. The ship's AI chimes softly. Captain, your heart rate is elevated. Medical intervention required. No, just having a moral crisis. File departure clearance and plot a course for anywhere that isn't here. Destination unclear. Please specify. Anywhere AI, deep space, outer territories. Somewhere I can think without station authorities, potentially asking uncomfortable questions about my new crew member. The AI processes this. Departure clearance filed. Course plotted for Sector 7, Deep Space Navigation. Estimated departure, 30 minutes. Marcus spends those 30 minutes reviewing the documents on the data chip, each page making him feel progressively worse. Medical records showing Lysa had been checked for breeding viability. Training history detailing how she'd been taught to serve. Previous ownership records, because apparently she'd been sold multiple times already, passed between owners who saw her as merchandise. The medical records mention scars, old ones from before her enslavement. Marcus cross-references them with what little information he can find about Velener's coup, discovers that interrogation had been part of her processing before she was sold, that they'd wanted information about House Velani's assets, allies, vulnerabilities. She'd been tortured, then sold, then trained to be compliant, and she'd stood on that auction block with her head high, calculating which buyer would kill her slowest. Marcus closes the files before he reads more and decides to do something violently illegal. The Dustrunner undocks smoothly, slipping into traffic patterns that carry them away from Terminus Station toward the infinite black. Once they're clear of station jurisdiction, Marcus engages the autopilot and goes to check on his passenger, his crew member, his legally owned person, which still makes him want to set legal documents on fire. He knocks on the cabin door. Lysa, We're clear of station, safe to move around if you want. The door opens. She's changed out of the rags into clothing she must have found in the cabin's storage standard crew jumpsuit that's sized for humans, and therefore slightly too large for her frame, but at least it's clean and whole. She's washed her face, attempted to do something with her hair, looks marginally less exhausted. "Thank you," she says, "for everything. The clothing, the privacy, the locked door. You don't know what any of that means after 4 months of having none of it. I can imagine, or actually I probably can't, but I'm sorry you had to experience it." Marcus gestures toward the galley. "Are you hungry? I'm not a great cook, but I can manage protein rations that don't violate sentience laws." "That would be wonderful." She follows him to the small galley, moving through the ship with careful observation. This is a cargo vessel, modified for single-person operation. You run alone. For the last 3 years, yes. Had a crew before that, but they decided corporate routes were safer than frontier trading. Can't say I blame them. Marcus starts preparing food, basic but nutritious. "What about you? Before everything happened, what did you do as diplomatic envoy?" Lysa sits at the small table. "Negotiated treaties mostly. Trade agreements, territorial boundaries, cultural exchange programs. I was good at it. Third daughters are trained for diplomacy since we're not heirs and therefore useful for building alliances without risking succession." That sounds complicated. Everything about Velenorian nobility is complicated, was complicated. She corrects herself. The revolution simplified things considerably by killing most of us. Marcus sets food in front of her. "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." "I should talk about it. You're risking significant legal trouble by keeping me, and you deserve to know what you're protecting." She picks at the food. "House Velani ruled the Northern Territories for 6 generations. We weren't perfect, no nobility is, but we tried to be fair. Invested in infrastructure, maintained peace with neighboring houses, kept our people fed and safe." "So what happened?" "Someone wanted power and wrapped their ambition in revolutionary rhetoric. Claimed we were oppressing the people, hoarding resources, living in luxury while others starved." She takes a bite, chews thoughtfully. "Some of it was even true. We did live in luxury. We did have resources others didn't. But we also built hospitals, schools, maintained trade routes that kept food prices stable. The revolution promised equality and delivered chaos." Marcus listens, trying to imagine losing everything: family, home, status, freedom, in a matter of days. "They executed my family publicly," Lysa continues, her voice careful and controlled. "Broadcasted across the planet. Called it justice. Then they came for those of us who'd been off-world during the initial coup. Arrested us, interrogated us, tried to get us to denounce our families and support the revolution." She sets down her fork. "I refused, so they declared me property and sold me. The credits funded their revolution. Very efficient." "That's not revolution, that's just replacing one form of oppression with another." "Yes, but it takes time for people to realize that. By the time they do, the new oppressors are too entrenched to remove easily." She meets his eyes. "Thank you for this meal. It's the first one in months where I wasn't afraid someone would poison it or demand payment I couldn't give." Marcus feels something crack in his chest. "You're safe here. For the full year, however long it takes, you're safe." "I believe you, which is remarkable considering." She almost smiles. "Most humans I've met are not particularly trustworthy. Most humans you've met recently were at a slave auction. That's a biased sample." This time she does smile, brief and genuine. "Fair point." They fall into routine over the following weeks. Marcus handles flight operations and trade negotiations, taking smaller contracts than usual because he's operating on depleted funds and needs to rebuild reserves carefully. Lysa learns ship systems with frightening speed, mastering navigation and basic engineering like she's been doing it for years rather than weeks. "You're good at this," Marcus comments one day, watching her recalibrate the sensor array with more precision than he usually manages. "I'm good at learning systems quickly, Survival skill from diplomatic training. You never know what technical knowledge you'll need to broker a deal or escape a situation. She adjusts another setting. Also, I refuse to be useless. If I'm going to occupy space on your ship, I'm going to earn it. You don't have to earn anything. The deal was protection, not indentured servitude. The deal was protection in exchange for working as crew. I'm working as crew. She finishes the calibration, and the sensors immediately show better clarity. Besides, staying busy helps, gives me less time to think about everything I've lost. Marcus understands that instinct. He's been running from his own losses for 3 years. What do you miss most? Lysa is quiet for a long moment. My sister, eldest daughter, heir to the house. She was brilliant, terrifying, would have been an excellent leader if they'd given her the chance. They executed her first, made us watch. I miss knowing she existed in the universe, even when we were on different planets. She wipes at her eyes quickly. I'm sorry, you didn't ask for emotional processing. You can process all you want. That's what happens when you're trapped on a small ship with someone. You learn their history whether you plan to or not. Marcus moves closer. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about your sister, about all of it. Thank you. Lysa takes a shaky breath. What about you? What are you running from by staying in frontier space alone? Marcus considers deflecting, but she's been honest with him. Previous crew, previous relationship actually. We were together for 2 years, working this ship as partners. Then she decided she wanted stability, wanted to go back to Earth space, wanted things I couldn't give her while chasing frontier contracts. She left, took half the crew with her, and I've been solo ever since. You miss her. I miss the partnership, the companionship, having someone to navigate with. He shrugs. But I also like the freedom of making my own decisions, taking the contracts I want, not compromising on routes or risks. So I'm either independent or lonely depending on how you frame it. Both can be true. Lysa studies him. You're lonely. I can tell because I'm lonely too, and we recognize our own kind. But you're also convinced you're better off alone, which is fascinating self-deception. I'm not self-deceiving. I'm being realistic about my ability to maintain relationships. You're maintaining one right now, with me, successfully, even. Marcus opens his mouth to argue that this is different, realizes she's right, closes his mouth again. Okay, fair point, but this is temporary, year contract, remember. You'll be free and gone, and I'll be alone again. Unless I don't want to be gone, Lysa says quietly. What? Nothing. Forget I said that. She returns to the sensors. These are calibrated. Should give us better early warning if anyone's tracking us. Marcus wants to push the conversation, but Lysa's body language has gone closed off. He lets it drop, files it away for later consideration, and goes back to plotting their next route. 3 months in, they're docked at a trading post when Marcus spots trouble. Someone paying too much attention to the dust runner, taking images, cross-referencing something on a datapad. He approaches the person directly. Years of frontier trading have taught him that confronting problems early beats avoiding them. Can I help you? He asks, tone friendly but carrying an undertone of I noticed you being suspicious. The person looks up, human male carrying equipment that screams bounty hunter. You the owner of that vessel? Yes, Marcus Reed. And you are? Looking for someone. Female, Velani species, answers to the name Lysa. Word is she might be in this sector. He shows Marcus an image. It's definitely Lysa, though the photo is from before her enslavement. She's wearing formal robes, smiling at some diplomatic function. Veliner's new government wants her back, paying 50,000 credits for information leading to her capture. Marcus keeps his expression neutral through sheer force of will. 50,000 must have done something serious. She's a war criminal, part of the old regime that oppressed the people. They want her to face justice. The bounty hunter studies Marcus. You seen anyone matching this description? Frontier space is full of people running from something. I make it a policy not to notice. Marcus considers his options, does some quick mental math on risk versus reward. But if I were you, I'd be careful about this particular hunt. Why's that? Because word around frontier stations is that the Velener revolution isn't exactly stable. Government keeps changing. People who were heroes yesterday are war criminals today. 50,000 credits today might turn into an arrest warrant for you tomorrow if the wrong faction takes power. Marcus shrugs. Just something to consider before you invest too much time in a hunt that might not pay out. The bounty hunter frowns, clearly not expecting pushback. You know something you're not saying. I know that frontier politics are complicated and trusting governments in active revolution is usually a bad bet, but you do what you think is right. Marcus starts to walk away, then turns back. Also, if I were hunting someone, I'd keep it quieter. Broadcasting your target on public docks just warns everyone connected to underground networks, including the target. He leaves the bounty hunter processing that advice and heads back to the ship at a carefully controlled pace that doesn't scream panic. Once aboard, he finds Lysa in the engine room, elbow-deep in maintenance. We need to leave. Now. She looks up, reads his expression. Bounty hunter. Yes, he's asking questions, showing your picture. We need to be gone before he decides to scan docked vessels. Lysa is already moving, closing panels, securing tools. How much time do we have? Maybe an hour if we're lucky, less if he's smart. Marcus heads to the cockpit, starts pre-flight. I bought his silence temporarily with some misdirection, but it won't hold long. They're sealed and undocking within 15 minutes, a personal record. The dust runner slips away from the trading post with minimal attention, just another cargo vessel heading to its next contract. Once they're clear and in deep space, Marcus sets autopilot and goes to find Lysa. She's in her cabin, packing her minimal belongings with mechanical efficiency. I should leave, she says without looking up. Take a transport to a different sector, find other options. You've done enough, risked enough. No, Marcus blocks the door. We had an agreement, 1 year of protection. We're at 3 months. Contract stands. You can't fight bounty hunters for me, Marcus. You'll lose your ship, possibly your life. That's not reasonable risk for what? For keeping my word, for protecting someone who trusted me. He moves closer. Lysa, I made you a promise. I'm not breaking it because it got inconvenient. This is more than inconvenient. This is actively dangerous. You could void the contract, claim I ran, collect the bounty yourself if you wanted. I don't want the bounty. I want you safe. Marcus meets her eyes. We're partners now. Maybe we started as owner and property, but we're past that. Your crew, you're my friend, and I'm not abandoning you to bounty hunters because the situation got complicated. Lysa stares at him. Why? You barely know me. Why risk everything? Because you trusted me when you had no reason to trust anyone. Because you asked me to protect you and I said yes. Because, he stops, recalibrates. Because it's the right thing to do, and because I like having you aboard. Ship's been less lonely with you here. Something shifts in her expression. You're either the best human I've ever met or the most foolish. Probably both. Now unpack. We're going dark for a while, heading to deep space where tracking is harder. And you're going to teach me everything you know about Velener's political situation so I can plan better routes around bounty hunter networks. Lysa unpacks slowly. You're sure about this? Completely sure. Well, mostly sure, 80% sure. Marcus grins. But that's better odds than most frontier trading, so we'll manage. She almost laughs. Thank you, Marcus, for being 80% sure about risking everything for me. You're welcome. Now come on, we've got planning to do, and you're making dinner because I saw you judging my cooking yesterday. I was not judging. You absolutely were. I saw your face when I served protein rations with expired flavor packets. This time she does laugh. Fine, I'll cook, but only because I value my digestive system. They spend the evening planning escape routes and cooking meals that actually taste like food. And Marcus realizes somewhere in the last 3 months, Lysa stopped being a rescue project and started being someone he genuinely cares about. That realization should probably concern him more than it does. 5 months into their year together, and Marcus has made several important discoveries. First, that Lysa is terrifyingly good at tactical planning and probably should have been running military operations instead of diplomatic missions. Second, that she hums while working, quiet melodies from her homeworld that make the ship feel less empty. Third, that he's completely, hopelessly in love with her, which is both the best and worst possible development. Best because she's brilliant, brave, funny in ways that catch him off guard. Worst because she's technically still his legal property for 7 more months, and confessing feelings to someone in that situation would be approximately 17 kinds of wrong. So he doesn't say anything. Just keeps flying, keeps protecting her, keeps pretending his heart doesn't do complicated things every time she smiles at him. They've evaded 4 more bounty hunter attempts by this point, established a network of contacts who help them stay ahead of threats, and Lysa has been building her case for asylum with the meticulous precision of someone who understands bureaucracy intimately. "I found a system willing to grant refugee status," she announces one evening, pulling up star charts. "Avalon Reach, independent colony, no extradition treaties with Velener, strong legal protections for political refugees. Processing takes about 3 months, which puts us right at the end of our year. That's good." Marcus tries to sound enthusiastic. "That's what we've been working toward." "Yes." Lysa is quiet for a moment. "It's exactly what we planned." They both know what they're not saying, that the plan working means she leaves, that their partnership has an expiration date rapidly approaching, that Marcus has gotten used to not being alone and is about to remember why he'd convinced himself solitude was preferable. "We should celebrate," Marcus says, "because acknowledging the melancholy would require admitting feelings he's keeping carefully contained. Success deserves celebration. I'll break out the good rations. The ones that expired last month instead of 6 months ago. Exactly those. We're living large tonight." They eat mediocre food and avoid discussing the future, and Marcus tells himself this is fine. This is what he signed up for, temporary partnership, helping someone in crisis, then returning to his comfortable isolation. He's a terrible liar, even to himself. 2 weeks later, they're en route to Avalon Reach when Lysa asks him to join her in the observation deck, a generous term for the small viewport alcove that's technically supposed to be emergency equipment storage. "We need to talk," she says, and Marcus's stomach drops because nothing good ever follows that phrase. About what happens in 2 months when our contract expires and I have legal refugee status." She's standing at the viewport, watching stars stream past. "I've been thinking about what I want my future to look like. And," Marcus keeps his voice carefully neutral, "and I want to stay aboard the Dustrunner. Work as your co-captain, your partner, split profits, split decisions, split the risks and rewards." She turns to face him. "If you'll have me." Marcus forgets how to process language for a moment. "You want to stay? After everything, after being enslaved, after I technically owned you, you want to stay on this ship?" "I want to stay with you," Lysa corrects. "Not because I'm obligated, not because I have nowhere else to go, but because these 5 months have been the most genuine partnership I've experienced in my entire life. You've treated me as an equal when the law said you didn't have to. You've protected me when abandoning me would have been easier and more profitable. You've been." She pauses, and her skin shifts with faint bioluminescence he rarely sees. "You've been extraordinary. I've been decent. Basic decency isn't extraordinary. It is when you're enslaved." Lysa moves closer. "It is when every day you wake up terrified that the person who owns you will stop pretending you're human and start treating you like property. You never did, not once, even when it would have been legally acceptable." "Of course I didn't. You're a person, not property. That was never in question. For you, maybe, but you don't understand how rare that is. How most owners," she stops, shakes her head. "You don't understand what you gave me. Safety, yes, but also dignity, choice, the ability to be myself instead of what someone demanded I be." Marcus feels his careful emotional control starting to crack. Lysa, I'm not finished. She takes his hand. I'm asking to stay not because you saved me, but because I choose you. Choose this ship, this life, this partnership. I know in 2 months I'll be free, legally completely free. I should probably take time, explore options, not commit to the first thing that seems safe. Exactly, you should. But I don't want safe, I want honest. Her grip tightens. And honestly, I've fallen in love with a cargo pilot who bought me by accident and then spent 5 months treating me like I mattered. So unless you're about to tell me that's not mutual, I'm staying. The observation deck is suddenly very small, and Marcus's ability to maintain emotional distance has completely failed. It's mutual. It's been mutual for months. I just didn't want to. You've been through trauma. I didn't want to add pressure by confessing feelings when you're still technically. Lysa kisses him. It's not gentle or careful. It's fierce and certain, and everything Marcus has been trying not to want for 5 months. When they finally break apart, she's smiling. Stop overthinking. I know what I want. Do you? Yes. Marcus pulls her close again. Yes, I want you to stay, want this partnership to continue. Want to stop pretending I'm better off alone when having you here is the best thing that's happened to me in years. Good. Lysa rests her forehead against his. Then we're doing this. Partners in business and in life. Your culture, Marcus says, remembering something she'd mentioned months ago. Didn't you say partnership offers are equivalent to marriage proposals? I did say that. Are you accepting or declining? Accepting. Definitely accepting. He grins. Though we should probably make it official once you're legally free. Seems like better optics than man marries person he technically owns. Probably wise, though I should warn you, I've already been telling people we're married. Seemed simpler than explaining our actual situation. Marcus laughs. You've been planning this. Since month 3, when you defended me from those first bounty hunters, and I realized you were either going to get us both killed or be the best thing that ever happened to me. She kisses him again. Still not sure which, but I'm committed to finding out. They spend the rest of the journey to Avalon Reach planning a future that looks nothing like either of them expected, but everything both of them want. When the contract officially expires and Lysa's refugee status is granted, they file different paperwork instead. Partnership agreement making them co-owners of the Dust Runner, and marriage documents that make official what they've been building for months. The ceremony is performed by a station magistrate who's clearly seen unusual situations but still seems bemused by their documentation trail. So you purchased her, the magistrate summarizes, then kept her enslaved for her own protection, then freed her and married her. He tried to free me immediately, Lysa corrects. I asked him to wait until I could be freed safely. Then I chose to stay. This is the weirdest love story I've processed this month. The magistrate signs the documents. You're legally bound. Try not to kill each other. They don't kill each other. They build a life instead,